Kirsten, we're going to start with you because we have yet to hear from you on this remarkable weekend. The president went to church, and as the Washington Post noted, that was one island of calm in a sea of bile, really. Yeah. Lashing out at John McCain, lashing out at the Russia investigation, lashing out at Saturday Night Live. This is on your screen here, just some of the attacks that he levied over the weekend. How should we read this in your mind?
Well, I think people should just stop and think if anybody in their household did this, was sending out 50 tweets and these kinds of tweets, what would you be thinking? You would be concerned about that person. This isn't really normal behavior for anybody, let alone the president of the United States, unless your job is to be on Twitter all the time. So I think that in itself is problematic. I also think it's very telling that he sent 5 tweets defending Jeanine Pirro for clearly bigoted anti-Islam comments that she made, and he can't get that kind of enthusiasm about standing up against an attack that killed 50 people, right? I mean, there's just it just shows that when he's upset about something, and to him, Jeanine Pirro not being on air is more important to him than standing in solidarity with Muslims who are, terrified after seeing what has happened and knowing that, that a lot of people feel that he himself engages in a lot of anti-Islam rhetoric.
Which, to Kirsten's point, David, brings up a lot of what we have discussed for the last couple of years, which is how much do you cover this? How much do you look at the tweets? How much stock do you put in the tweets? But it's important to note, as she did, this isn't normal for someone to tweet about these things, to react in this way, certainly not when holding that office. And that is why, David, I think it's easy to make the case we need to look at these things because we have to understand where we're at as a country.
Well, you get some insight into the presidential priorities. This is a role that has a bully pulpit, that has an outsized influence around the world, even without someone who tweets a lot. And how he chooses to use that form tells us something about how he thinks and what his priorities are. That's what's important. And I think Kirsten's right. The pattern here is obvious. It's not an oversight. The president is trying always to put this in the realm of politics, to tweak liberals, to defend friends at Fox News, without doing what he can and should do to be big, to be the leader of the free world, to say, let's use this moment to call hate by its name, to say that it is never okay, that it should be condemned in all quarters. No one should feel comfort from anywhere that you can be responsible for this kind of violence and hold these views and express these views. He doesn't do that. Now, he'll do it when it comes to bashing Muslims or Islam or Islamic fanaticism, but he won't do it when it comes to white nationalism. There's a reason for that. It is not an oversight. And so he plays kind of loose with this group of white nationalists not wanting to offend his core supporters. That may include them, may not, but certainly there is a mindset that the president has that is not about governing the entire country. It's playing to a narrow band of people.
But let's remember also, as we talk about President Trump, there are lots of people who think this is just great. We're here, we're outraged, we think it's terrible that he's indulging this sort of bigotry, but he is speaking to millions and millions of people who think exactly the way he does. We have spent years now saying that, well, now Donald Trump has stepped over the line, whether it's attacking a Gold Star family or John McCain or, any number of these crises, and he doesn't his popularity essentially never moves. Somewhere around 40% of the country thinks this is all great. So this isn't just about Donald Trump. It's about where we live.
Yeah, I want to say something about that, because what I've noticed also is if you say what Jeffrey just said, and I've said it before, people are more offended by that usually, like how dare you say this about Trump voters or how dare you say this about Donald Trump, than they are about what Donald Trump says. Right? It's just it's just a weird kind of alternate universe. And I think it's telling also, that Fox News didn't announce that they were suspending Jeanine Pirro for what she did. And so that tells you that they believe that their viewers relate to what she said, right? I mean, there's no other way to take it.
Right, and then to take action against it would be, actually, that's an important point, that to take action against it publicly is what would be so problematic. So here, President Trump, I mean, his response was incredibly adolescent when you think about it. It's like, well, this is, what happened in New Zealand is obviously an indicative of some people with some real problems, I guess. That's not how a president acts. Again, Jeffrey brought up, President Bush after 9/11 going to the Islamic Center, understanding how important it was to send a message. This is not about religion. This is not about Islam. This is about terrorists who have targeted us. This president isn't thinking big that way and not elevating what are American values.
And I think we all forget, we don't forget it, but the president called for a ban on Muslims. He wanted to ban Muslims from coming to the United States. He campaigned on a Muslim ban for a long time. And then when he became president, he did a travel ban, which some people saw as a Muslim ban. The president said it was banning people from specific countries. But it's not a small thing. It's a feature, not a bug, from this president. And there's a reason his chief of staff had to go on television this weekend. And in answer to a question, when you saw it, it wasn't exactly, is the president a white supremacist? This is what the chief of staff said.
You've seen the president stand up for religious liberties, individual liberties. The president is not a white supremacist. I'm not sure how many times we have to say that.
Apparently, one more time, Jeffrey, on TV this weekend.
Well, and it's very interesting when he's talking about religious liberty. What the president has spoken out for is about the oppression of Christians and discrimination against Christians, which he does talk about all the time. Particularly, conservative Christians he feels are discriminated against. This president does not talk about discrimination against Muslims. And that is where, that's very much an intentional approach. You said feature, not bug. I mean, we spent a long time saying, he's going to get presidential after the Republican convention in 2016, after he was inaugurated. This is who Donald Trump is. There is no pretense about how he behaves. And, enablers like his chief of staff can try to pretend that something else is going on here. But, the one advantage of Twitter is that we get to see the real Donald Trump. There's no mediation there. It is just all out there for us to see.